Welcome to a Friday edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm your host, John Gonzalez, alongside our NBA insider, Bill Ryder. And Bill,
Hey
it's
man,
over. It
I know you
happened.
don't want to hear it. I know I said this last night, and I know that you were very gracious and sort of calm in defeat, but I still feel for you and all Sixers fans because that was a hell of a series, and that should not have been. That felt like a conference finals, man. I'm sorry your team is done.
It was an incredible series. I appreciate the sentiment. Aaron did sort of the same thing. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of Knicks maniacs in my mentions, I guess, trying to make me feel bad about this. I want to let you
Of
in a
course.
little bit into the Philadelphia psyche. I think it's hilarious. Knicks fans should celebrate, absolutely. But trying to make Sixers fans or Philadelphia fans writ large feel bad about a series like that kind of misses the mark, because that is not within, I was saying this to you two, you and Aaron on our pre-show call. That's not within the top 25 greatest Philadelphia sports defeats,
Yeah.
let alone Sixers defeats. There's reasons in the past to hang your head. They lose game 6 last year against the Celtics and then no show in game 7. That's a reason to be disappointed. Year before, embarrass themselves in game 6 against the Heat. That's a reason to be disappointed. Year before that, they lose game 7 against the Atlanta Hawks of all teams with a chance to go to the conference finals because Ben Simmons won't dunk a basketball. That's a reason to be disappointed. I mean, the Phillies last year lose game 6 and 7 to the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are somehow a
We're going
team. I don't know
baseball.
how they.
We're going baseball.
Right.
Okay.
I
Sure.
mean,
What about the
football.
Kawhi Leonard multi
Well,
bounce
so
shot?
no, that's what I'm saying. In instances like that,
That's heartbreaking though.
Kawhi Leonard hits a four. I
That's
was in the
luck.
building. I covered that, and he hits a 4 bounce
Okay.
all-time shot from a superstar. That's one of the reasons where you tip your cap and you go, "That's an unbelievable play. Sucks that you're not moving on, but that's such a really good performance in an incredible series." That's how I feel about this series.
Interesting.
Would it be great for the Sixers to move on? Absolutely. But when the Knicks have a performance like that and they beat the Sixers by a total of 1 point over 6 games, I mean, what are you going to do? What more can you ask for? That was a great
I mean,
series.
as a neutral, right? As just a basketball fan who, as you know, because you do this, I watch a lot of games. I've covered
Yeah.
almost every finals, other than the ones where my kids were born for the last 15 years. Been to a lot of games. Cool, love it, love the sport. My heart doesn't palpitate, especially in the first round. I don't have an emotional. I was so nervous. I was pacing my living room. I was covered. I mean, it was hard to watch the free throws. It was a beautifully stressful, incredible. Somebody had to lose, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what a basketball game. What a basketball series. It was awesome. It was
What a
awesome.
series. The only thing that I'm disappointed about, because I love basketball as you do, is that we didn't get game 7 in Madison Square Garden
Yeah.
for the first time since 1995. That would have been unbelievable. But credit to the Knicks. We're going to get into it. Later in the show, we're going to talk about the Pacers beating the Bucks and where the Bucks go from here. And then we're also going to preview this weekend's playoff games, including the highly anticipated, very tasty Wolves-Nuggets series. But first, as we mentioned, the Knicks beat the Sixers 118-115 to win the series 4-2. 5 of the 6 games, Bill, decided by single digits. There was an overtime thriller. The Knicks margin over the entire course of the series, as I mentioned, was 1 point. Unbelievable performance yet again by Jalen Brunson in that game 6, 41 and 12 assists, 2 huge threes late. Nova Knicks went
Guy's a
crazy.
baller, man. He's such a baller. Oh my
They
God.
were fantastic.
They were awesome. And I mean, let's give your Sixers credit. You're down 22 in the first half. You come back and you're down, was it 8? I think 8, 109, 101 maybe, with 3.5 minutes left. And you tied the game. I mean, it was the mental fortitude both those teams show was pretty amazing too. Both you guys, not your team, the Sixers not giving up. And the Knicks not crumbling in the face of the giant sort of mini collapse, whatever. It's the first half. Teams make runs. But again, it felt like maybe another sizable lead, 3.5 minutes is a lot of time, but it's a comfortable lead suddenly going the other way. I mean, that is massive pressure both those teams navigated.
What a knockdown, drag out brawl from start to finish, including in game 6. Like you said, they're up 22. And in years past, you would definitely expect the Sixers to just pack it in 1, 2, 3, Cancun that thing. And instead they climb back into it, and they were just exchanging knockout blows this entire time.
Or the Knicks to lose, right? Conversely, right?
Yeah.
A Knicks team that blows. They were, instead of them both being mentally weak and it being a race to the bottom, they were, I thought, both awesome in the face of real. It felt like a conference finals. It really did. It was
What
awesome.
a series. I want to also give credit to Josh Hart, who played 46 minutes last night, had 14 rebounds, and was a huge swing deciding factor in this series because the Sixers pretty plainly decided that their strategy was going to leave Josh Hart open for much of the series from three and dare him to beat them. And once again, last night, knocked down some big threes. He was big in games 1, 3, and 6. He shot 30% from three this season. He was 43% in this series. Like he was incredible. And like the effort, the rebounds, the defense, I mean, Josh Hart, full marks. And by the way, the Knicks
and the minutes, like Tibbs played, I think 6 guys, 17 minutes or more, but like 4 of them played almost the whole game. I mean, it's classic Tibbs, but all those dudes Warriors.
Knicks get credit for identifying Josh Hart. They gave up Cam Reddish, Archie Diacono, and Svi Mihalik, and a protected first-round pick for Josh Hart, who ends up being like a monster contributor for this team. And by the way, who would have expected, it is kind of a very classic Tibbs to just ride with his starters, but the Knicks were pretty plainly a much deeper team than the Sixers. Who would have expected the Sixers bench to outscore the Knicks 42-5 in this thing? Like what?
It was a weird. Can I circle back to what you just said? Because we don't bring up Leon Rose very often. He runs basketball operations for the Knicks. And we bring up all the other GMs, in part because Leon Rose is the JD Salinger of front office people. You can't. I actually knew him a little bit. He was at CAA, but if I bumped into him in New York, I think he would turn and run the other way. To your point that you just made about Hart, and by the way, I saw maybe it was TNT, maybe it's the guys on the post game show, but somebody made the point in the whirlwind of emotion and info yesterday that Brunson might be the best free agent signing in history. It's a little much, but I mean, let's see how far they go.
It might be.
Maybe we'll see how Leon Rose. Like credit to that guy because when agents and power agents become GMs, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And the job that he has done in what has been in the past a toxic culture the entire way through that organization, it is so commendable. It is so amazing. And to your point about Hart and other decisions, what they have identified, what they put together, hiring the coach who could it's really, really impressive.
Yeah, they've had an unbelievable season. Credit to them. We're going to talk also about their matchup with the Pacers in the second round, but we should discuss the 76ers getting bounced. What happens now? Joel Embiid. Look, there's been a lot of knocks against this guy, especially in elimination games. I thought he was good. Yeah, the fourth quarter wasn't great in total. But I thought that he was excellent in that game for the whole last night and really good in the series. He went for 39 and 12. He had a career high that was a career high for him in an elimination game. Second most 30-point playoff games in franchise history. Only Allen Iverson has had more. The big thing for them with Joel Embiid, Bill, is the same as it's always been. They were plus 46 with him on the floor in this series. They were minus 47 with him off. In the 43 minutes that Paul Reed played, they were minus 44. They lost over a point a minute when Paul Reed was on the floor. They have never been able to identify a backup to Joel Embiid.
So I understand this is a nuanced conversation, and you are speaking with nuance, and I'm going to too. I did think that on CBS Sports HQ, I know we're not supposed to have favorites, but Akeem Dermish is my favorite anchor. I love Akeem, Team Akeem. But I thought you and he doing your one-on-one love letter to Joel Embiid. For me last night, what was a little much. Look, it's complicated. He's amazing. And if you throw that full screen up, I think there's another picture here because this is the only MVP in the history of the game to not make it conference finals. Yes. And yeah, he was amazing yesterday, but he had 25 turnovers in this series. That is by far the most of any individual. Entering yesterday's contest in this series, the guy was shooting 23% from the field in the fourth quarter and 11% from three. Now, I think he was 2 for 4 in the fourth last night with like 6 points. He was fine. He was good. But he's had he's had disappearing acts. He's 4 and 7 in elimination games in his career, and he's shooting 38% in those games and 25% from three. I mean, I can keep going. We talked earlier in the week on the pod about the crazy number of games in which he is in the fourth quarter, just not made a shot. So I agree he was amazing last night. And he actually was and Maxey was awful until the fourth quarter.
Awful.
Yes. Awful. But then like Maxey had 12 fourth quarter points. So yesterday I think is not an Embiid. Embiid was great. He carried that team almost by himself, almost alone. But I do think that I know he's hurt. I know he has Bell's palsy. I know he's banged up. I respect the hell out of it. But we're at the point now where this is becoming consistent. He has not succeeded in the playoffs. He's deep into his career. I was saying this to our producer. If Kawhi Leonard had the exact same history, minus the 2 championships, even the injuries at a certain point, people would roll their eyes. I don't think we're there yet, but I am not going to cover him with, I'm not going to douse him with praise. Last night's game was great. I think there are big questions about him late in games, and maybe there are valid excuses in this series, but there's enough of a history now that he has got to get it done, John, next year, some year, because he hasn't.
Well, I mean, as you met, and I disagree with the graphic, the lower third there, that he disappeared in the fourth, because I don't think he did. I thought he played really good defense as well. I mean, like there were games 4 and 5 he disappeared. Yes, last night I didn't.
But you need more.
He had 6 points. Yeah,
no, last
I mean,
night
he
was
had
great.
6.
Last night
he only took 4 shots in the fourth quarter, but again, defensively he was good, and there was a lot of energy and effort there. And yes, those criticisms previously, I would 1000% agree with.
Not last night.
From last night, I don't agree with it. Right. And you're mentioning that there have been 36 league MVPs and he's the only one to never make a conference finals. Totally valid. I'll do you one even better. He's in his career, he's had 7 series against teams that have finished in the top 10 in net rating, 0 for 7. Yeah, I mean, like that is absolutely legit, right? Like those are valid criticisms. But I also believe that when you look at the reason why they didn't get past the Knicks in the first round, there are like 12 other reasons before you get to Joel Embiid.
I mean, look, there's 2 games where he didn't make it, right? 2 games in the series where he didn't make a shot in the fourth quarter, and it was so it's like, you're right. And look, I love Embiid as my, I don't know, second or I just think he's hilarious, and I love watching him play. It's not, I don't dislike him or doubt him like maybe I would to some other players. I do think it's a complicated thing, and I don't think you can draw real conclusions from this series. But some of the things in this series that are problematic and maybe explained by injury and how good the Knicks are, but the pattern in the past, he needs to start winning in the years ahead.
Yeah,
and the window's not that big.
He does, and the window isn't that big. I also think, like, playing on one knee and half a face, like, what do you want from the guy?
Fair.
Plus,
it's all true. I think all this is true.
All of it is true, and it's all true at the same time. As for the team, and we should discuss like where they go from here, because they basically were playing with 2.5 players this year. They had Maxey and they had Embiid and they had Kelly Oubre is fine, but he's on a minimum contract for a reason, and he was their 3rd best player. So they've got a ton of unrestricted free agents this year. Tobias Harris, he's definitely 1000% gone. In his last game, Bill, how fitting is this? 29 minutes, 0 points on 2 shots. It's the first time since 2015 that he failed to score. Enjoy your time in Detroit or Orlando or wherever you end up. Nobody will miss you. They've got some decisions to make.
Yeah, they do. By the way, on the radio show, I think your head would explode if I tried to do this on this show. But every Friday we do a bum of the week on the radio show. Bum of the week. Tobias Harris, this is a different show, but whatever. You're a bum of the week. Like, this is congratulations. And he'll never wear a Sixers jersey again. So I was going to ask you this as we get into this conversation about rebuilding. I think we all agree Anthony Edwards is a superstar and a superstar in the playoffs. I think we all buy that. We've seen Brunson. I'm putting Maxey on the same level, right? I mean, Maxey is. I think he's that good, and that maybe more importantly reliable because he was awesome in this series.
I think it was pretty symbolic. I had to stick around last night on HQ and wait for Embiid to come out and talk. And not surprisingly, he took his sweet time. It was like over an hour and change until he came back. But when he came out, Tyrese Maxey was sitting next to him. And he made the point of saying, like, this guy is taking the step forward. And it's not just me anymore. It's me and this guy. And this offseason was all he also said, and I think this is important. Embiid was talking about he wants continuity, right? That these teams that have won traditionally, and he mentioned Joker and the Nuggets and Jamal Murray have been together for a long time, and that they just keep roster churning everybody around him.
Such a good point.
With the Sixers, which is fair, right? But bad news for him, this thing was always set up to get roster churn this offseason. Win or lose, advance past the Knicks or not, Daryl Morey set this up too. They have $60 million in cap space in the offseason. They've got Embiid under contract. They haven't given Maxey the extension yet because they want the flexibility to sign somebody in free agency and or trade for somebody into that cap space. They will give him the max eventually, but Tobias is definitely gone. They're going to figure out what they're going to do with Oubre. Who knows about Batum and Hield? Melton, I guess
play Hield. They didn't play Hield.
Right. No, they didn't. He caught 2 DMPCDs and then went for 20 and 21 minutes, which is crazy. But this is what I'm talking about. Like, they have an incredible amount of flexibility, and the roster is going to look largely different next season. So I want to run some guys past you and see what you think. Not surprisingly.
I want to do it. I just want to apologize first. I have totally come around on Paul George. I know maybe you're going to get to PG. 180.
Next thing.
I thought about, sorry to interrupt you. Then I thought about something you said. I just want to tell you, you're right. He can be the third guy, and the 1A and the 1B are so good. Paul George maybe wins you one game offensively, plays defense. Anyway, I'm 180, PG 180, only in Philly, though, not in Orlando.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I like him at both ends of the floor, and especially if you take the pressure off. I mean, he's just such a good defender that whatever you're getting from him offensively, those are massive upgrades in that 3 spot, as opposed to Tobias Harris, who I think at one point he was on the floor. I'm like, why is he on the floor in the fourth quarter?
He's as bad as Ben Simmons. He was as bad as Ben Simmons in Simmons' last game.
Yeah, for $40
as a Sixers.
All right. So obviously, Paul George, who has not signed his extension with the Clippers, is going to be top of mind for the Sixers. Everybody knows that. It's not surprising. DeMar DeRozan, they tried to pry him away from the Chicago Bulls before the trade deadline. He's an unrestricted free agent. That's also not surprising that they'll be interested in him. I want to throw 2 more guys at you that ESPN's Brian Windhorst threw out today.
Do it, and then I have a question for you at the back end.
Yes, Jimmy Butler, who wants an extension. The Sixers decided to go with Tobias Harris previously over him. He's got 2 years left on his deal. Next year is 48.7, and then he's got a player option after that at 52. And then we talked about the New Orleans Pelicans the other day, and you heard David Griffin say that this offseason is going to be different. Maybe Brandon Ingram, who has one more year left on his contract and then becomes an unrestricted free agent. That could be it.
All right, here are my thoughts, right? Like, obviously, Philly needs more, and they got to redo most of the roster. And obviously, they are positioned, even in a brutal East, to be exceptional if they add the right pieces around 2 superstars. So okay, with that, Butler is 34, going to be 35, I think. Is that where he is?
35. He'll be 35 next season, yeah.
Right, yeah. So he'll be 30. So that makes me a little nervous, especially given his injury history. But the beauty of bringing him back when they never should have let him go, and he's obviously a playoff winner, and he wouldn't have to play a lot of minutes. If you could almost manage him the way the Spurs did Duncan at the end of his career, where Duncan might play 25, 26, 27 minutes a game, and they rested him, and they played a lot of minutes in the playoffs. Kind of different, but you could load manage the hell out of Jimmy. Like maybe Ingram. And I love Ingram's game, and I think it would fit. Do you want 2 guys you have to rely on who are injury prone in Embiid? No. And so let me ask you a question, and it's sort of farcical, but I don't know that it's entirely. I actually don't know if it's farcical because I don't think anybody knows. Would you rather have, for basically the same commitment and money or close to it, LeBron James, who's about to be 40, or Paul George?
It's hard not to say LeBron James because he's the GOAT. But he also changes the power dynamics, right? Now, all of a sudden, I think you slot in Paul George pretty seamlessly because despite the fact that Paul George has had some injury issues, I think he integrates pretty well with basically every team he's ever been on. The question is just availability. And especially with the Sixers, where you already have a 1-2 punch, PG is going to slot in. He's going to be able to guard the other team's best offensive option. And then he can be a plus offensive option himself, as opposed to LeBron comes in. That thing just necessarily becomes about LeBron. I can't imagine him not being the main guy, right?
Yeah, it's a different question, but it's really interesting. Can LeBron ever defer? Can he ever be second? Because Duncan could and Kobe couldn't. There's different sort of avenues and routes that all-time greats take as they get older. Well, they're still sort of effective, but they've got to pull back a little. I mean, Duncan was more than willing to defer to Kawhi in 2014, to defer to Tony, right, to defer to all those guys. And Kobe wasn't, and that's fine. I think LeBron's probably more Kobe-like in that respect, that I think I was going to go LeBron, but as you talked, like the fact Paul George will play amazing defense the whole season too is probably nice and helpful.
He's also younger. I mean, he'll be 34 next year. But it's hard to say no to LeBron. All I know is that the team is going to look radically different next season, and Daryl Morey has his work cut out for him, right? Like, your mileage may vary on Daryl Morey. I think he's actually a really good general manager, but the knocks against Embiid also apply to Daryl Morey, right? I mean, he hasn't won it all. It's hard to win a championship, but in order to be thought of as one of the great front office executives in the game, eventually you got to win one. And we'll see what he does in the offseason.
And let me add this, in the same exact sort of line of thinking you just gave, I think Nick Nurse is an exceptional coach, but there were some weird moments in this series in terms of some of Nurse's decision-making and some of his in-game decision-making. I think Nurse is great, but that's Daryl's guy. So Daryl's got an open roster. He's got his guy as the coach. Next year, I think next year is so critical for Daryl Morey and Joel Embiid. because they are widely celebrated. And Daryl's a little more controversial, but I'm with you. But it's put up or shut up time, I think, for both of those dudes.
It absolutely is. The one thing I agree with Nick Nurse on was what he said before the game when he said nothing matters. Totally
That's
agree.
amazing.
It's Phillies season now. Phillies have the most wins in Major League Baseball. Go Phils. All right, we're gonna take
Do
a
they
quick
really?
break. Yeah, they do. They're half
I
game
did
out
not
of
know
first
that.
place.
All right.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I
Go
know
baseball.
people love baseball talk on a
I'll follow
basketball
it.
podcast. All right, we're gonna take a quick break and then we're gonna get into Bucks and the Pacers. That's next on Beyond the Arc.
Sail GP returns to the beaches of Bermuda. On CBS Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John and Bill here on a Friday edition. Find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Download and subscribe. Leave us a review. All right, in the other series in the Eastern Conference last night, Pacers win 120-98. They take that series 4-2. First series win in a decade for the Pacers, and it's the second season in a row that the Bucks are a first round out. Halliburton was pretty good. Siakam was pretty good. Pacers bench was excellent. Outscored the Bucks 45-10. All of a sudden, Bill, out of nowhere, you get the Obi Toppin TJ McConnell game. And then the Pacers amazing. And then the Pacers once again, 33 assists. That's 4 games for them in that series, Bill, with 30 or more assists. They're the only team in the playoffs so far to even have one such game. They looked good.
Yeah, and that's what they did this year. I mean, they were the best team in basketball in terms of assist percentage for an actual team. They look great. They shot, I don't even know what it's 54% from the field. I think I'm trying to remember through the haze of emotion of Knicks Sixers. But they had a great shooting night last night. They look comfortable at home. They're a really interesting basketball team. But I think the main takeaway for me is you have to win that series. And I'm not taking they did it, they earned it. Yeah, you have to. Forget Lillard coming back yesterday. He looked fine, he looked good. No Giannis, Lillard missing time. You have to win. So they got the job done that was required.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the Bucks and what they do from here. And they don't have a lot of options, unlike the Sixers. They're kind of like the Eastern Conference version of the Suns, really, in terms of how limited they are. But Dame did come back. He had 28, and he hit 4 of their 7 threes. They only made 7 threes, so not a great effort from the Bucks last night. But now it sets up Knicks and Pacers. And I think we're both in agreement, as are the betting odds, that the Knicks are going to be the favorite in this one. They're installed at -215.
They're
Pacers
-215?
-215. Pacers are +180. During the regular season, does this change your mind at all? Also, the CBS predictive model favors the Knicks 58% to 42%. But during the regular season, Pacers won 2 of the 3 games and outscored them by about 8 points per game. Does that sway you at all?
I mean, I guess it reinforces what I'm not gonna bet on this series, and I think the Knicks are gonna win. But +180 is not a bad number for. So there's a lot of variance. Yeah, there's really good value. I think there's a lot of variance here because I think let's oversimplify it. The Pacers play this high octane offense. They play this remarkable pace of play. It's hard to figure out in the playoffs because it's different to what degree they or the Knicks are going to basically dictate the tempo of play and what style of basketball we watch.
Yes.
The regular season tells us it's the Pacers, but playoff history tells us it's probably the Knicks because typically these things do slow down a little bit. It's a more physical series, and getting out in transition is not usually as effective a way to attack in the playoffs. And so in that context, like, it's also true if the Pacers can just shoot well and have a couple great shooting nights where they're just putting up shot after shot and they move the ball so well that they buy themselves good shots. It's not like kind of what the Heat did where they don't have the Heat got lucky in one game against the Celtics where they shot whatever they shot from 3 and they won. The Pacers move the rock and they can create really good looks and pretty high percentage shots. So I think that the Knicks are probably going to win. But I think the Pacers can make a series of it. And I think the Pacers can't. This is not like Cleveland or Orlando versus the Celtics where it would take a freaking miracle. Pacers, I don't think will win, but I think they can.
So the opening odds are the ones that I read to you, but producer Aaron says that he's found odds that are now even up to -260 for the Knicks and +220 for the Pacers, which is really good value.
I might bet that.
But I'm with you that, like, I'm very, very interested because, the old cliche is true, but it is true. Styles make fights. And what I watched last night with the Pacers, it's very hard for me to figure out how that fits into what we just watched in a 6-game series for Knicks and Sixers.
Sport.
It's a totally different story. So in the Pacers game last night, obviously the Pacers love to get out and run. They go, especially off a miss. They're immediately out and in transition. But last night, Bill, there were moments off of makes that they were pushing the ball quicker than I could. Like I was blown away on a couple where I'm like, wow, look how fast they're inbounding the ball and getting up the floor. And then you've got the Knicks and the Sixers in an old school playoff defensive battle that's like grinded out on every possession and fighting for everything. And it was gritty and physical. And like, I don't know which style is going to prevail here. I am with you in that I think that the Knicks are the better team. They've got home court advantage. I think that they've got momentum at their back. All of these things I think factor into it, but the styles are so radically different. I cannot wait to see how that works.
And look, the Knicks did a great job yesterday, at least for 3 quarters of making life really hard for Maxey. I mean, they figured out how to make, and like Halliburton hasn't been himself entirely since his injury anyway. He was an MVP level guy early in the season. And if you can try and, I don't take him out of the offense, but make it hard for him, make it difficult, lean on him physically, you can somewhat slow down that offense a little bit. I mean, there's a world where you can do that. So it feels like the version of basketball we're going to see is probably here's the other thing, like I think home court matters so much for teams that don't have a lot of playoff experience. And I think we've seen that to a degree in this, not entirely, but in this postseason where teams haven't really been there, especially Cleveland, Orlando, and the Pacers. So when the Pacers are not going to have home court, but if they can hold home court, if they can shoot better at home, if they can they can get to 2-2, I do think the pressure on New York is a real thing, and they handled it. They've handled it all year, but I just think you got to make it close and try to have a little bit of luck and variance if you're the Pacers, because if you let the Knicks get a sort of their arms around the series, it'll be over.
Yeah, producer Aaron points out that maybe the Pacers might be better suited for this matchup just because they just had the Bucks team that were kind of grinding it out a little bit. Maybe. I mean, I don't.
We're gonna find out.
We're gonna find out, and I don't think that it's a 0% chance for the Pacers. I just do think that the Knicks are the favorites. We should talk about the Bucks and what happens now. Dame came back. But I still wonder about like how he fits with this team. They've got some serious decisions to make this offseason, but none of them are going to be easy. There's not a lot of levers that they can pull. You know, Malik Beasley gone, probably Jay Crowder gone, and then Pat Beverly, he should be gone. I'm sure that you saw last night what happened.
Awful.
2 things happened in the game last night. He threw the ball into the crowd at a fan and hit a woman in the head. Apparently he wasn't aiming for her. They threw the ball back to him, and then he tossed it at the guy he was actually aiming at. So that happened. And then he goes into the locker room, and Melinda Adams, who's a producer of some renown for ESPN, had a microphone in the scrum around Patrick Beverly with a whole bunch of other reporters. And she asked him a question. And Patrick Beverly, like a child, said, "Do you subscribe to my podcast?" And she said, "No." And he said, "Then you can't interview me." All right, look, Patrick Beverly, you don't have to answer any questions you don't want to. But what he did next was he kept telling her to move and leave the scrum and grabbing her microphone. And that is absolutely unprofessional and unacceptable. You don't have to answer the questions, but when it's media hours, that becomes our office just like it's yours. And you don't want to answer the question, don't answer the question, but at least be a professional. Don't be a child. And he ended up, evidently, Melinda said that he reached out to her today and apologized, as did the Bucks. But how he conducts himself sometimes is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a forced apology. I don't care about his apology after the fact. It's the treatment. I teach this to my kid. There are some things that you do that don't matter that you think you can apologize later. The apology ain't enough. Yeah, I don't know what to say about him other than I hope he's suspended for a long time. He's not that good anyway. Not that it matters how you play to treat people this way. The guy is not worthy of our time or respect as a basketball player or clearly a person. Those are 2 incidents, or 3 if you want to include throwing the ball twice, right? Same sort of sequence, but 3 different things. Hit a woman in the head, hit a dude really hard in the chest, and insulted and berated a journalist doing their job because you're a sore loser and a baby man of a human being. I hope that guy gets suspended for an aggressive amount of time.
That's ridiculous. All right. As for the actual Bucks, I wanted to float 2 things by you because again, they are limited. They don't have a lot of cap space. They don't have a lot of draft assets that they can move around. There were some rumors, Bill, that John Horst might be interested in that Pistons job because supposedly in the offseason, he wanted Nick Nurse over Adrian Griffin, didn't get his way. And then when they decided to replace Adrian Griffin, he reportedly wanted to go with Kenny Atkinson over Doc, but the ownership, other executives wanted to bring in Doc. I mean, they could have some stuff in flux in the front office.
I will say this. I know a lot of people in that front office in Milwaukee pretty well. and I know John, and I haven't asked John about this, but I certainly, and I've sort of hinted at this on here, I think, in HQ, it is certainly my impression, not my reporting, but my impression that Doc Rivers was an end around. Either Doc to the owners or the owners to Doc. And that is, by the way, you own any team, you get to do that. But Horst, I think, was cut out of the process. And I think I should know this. I think he came from Detroit. I think that those are his roots. I think he was there.
He's from there, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he was like a scout and assistant. I think he worked his way up with the Pistons and then made the leap over, if I remember right, to Milwaukee eventually. And there's a bunch of guys in that organization who came from that Pistons organization back in the Dumars days. So like he is surrounded by a bunch of former Pistons folks in his front office, in the scouting department. I think it makes sense. And I also think it's an interesting get out while the getting out is good, because the Bucks are not set up, I think, for easy success, but the expectations for success are absolute in Milwaukee. Yeah. And the Pistons have been so abysmal that there's no expectations. And there are some things to work with there if you're pretty good at your job in the front office. Now, inheriting that Monty contract is really interesting. But I don't think it's a bad move, and I might want to get the hell out of Milwaukee, given everything that's happened. Because if you don't have the freedom to pick your coach with the situation you have there, now I'll say this: I think it was Horst. It was also Giannis, but they wanted Lillard. That's not like that was foisted upon, as I understand John Horst. So,
they wanted Lillard, and that brings us to the roster construction component, where you go, all right. I mean, is that going to work moving forward? And I mentioned that they're kind of like the Suns East and that they don't have a lot of options here. So it looks like you're kind of locked into Giannis and Dame. Then the question becomes, and this is something that our colleague from CBSSports.com, Sam Quinn, floated, like, do you maybe, because they absolutely need to fix the point of attack defense. There's no doubt about that. That was a serious problem this year. Do you maybe move Chris Middleton, who was healthy, was really good in this series, is only going to depreciate in value moving forward anyway? Is that maybe an option?
I think it is. And yes. I mean, because the thing, you're right about the Suns. I'll just say the Bucks are obviously in better position because they can move guys, whereas Bradley Beal, who is an albatross, I mean, he has a weight on that Suns organization for 3 more years, 150, 160 million, whatever the numbers are. He's got no trade clause. I like Middleton as a player. I want to look it up because I just said, I think yesterday or the day before on the pod, John, that the eye test, I don't think he looks great with Lillard when they're on the floor together.
No.
In his 48 games with Lillard, he's averaging 14.5 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds per game. That's what Middleton has done over the course of his time with Lillard. And you are in on Lillard. You are in on Damian Lillard.
Yeah,
and if you have to be. And I think also, and I don't know if it's been out there yet, you got to make sure Giannis stays happy, because we live in a time now where free agency is not free agency because guys can leave whenever the bleep they want to. So Giannis wanted Lillard, right?
Swap, right?
Right. Drew Holiday's not walking back through that door unless it's to kick your ass next year in the playoffs with the Boston Celtics. So I like Middleton's game. I like it a lot in the right situations when he can be healthy. But if you can get a return and you can surround – because we're in a league now where 2 stars in depth is actually, I think, what you need. It's not a big 3 league. It's just not. If you can go get that depth, then you can fill in the roster the right – yeah, maybe you do. It's a good call by Sam. I think it's
big questions for the Bucks this offseason for sure. All right, we're going to take another break, and then we're going to run through this weekend's playoff games, including tonight, big clash between the Clippers and the Mavs. And then Saturday, I cannot wait. We're going to start up with the Wolves and the Nuggets series. We'll discuss that coming up on Beyond the Arc.
And they're starting to get in the groove.
So impressive.
Lock your schedules. Aces are coming to CBS Sports Network.
Back to Beyond the Arc. Be sure to check us out on our YouTube page at Beyond the Arc CBS. Subscribe to it. Hit the like button. Leave a comment. You get to see Ashley making fun of me about the Knicks. All kinds of other fun stuff. All right, tonight, Bill, 2-3-2 series. Cavs at the Magic. Cavs are leading that 3-2. Magic are actually favored in this one. They're -4. And then we've also got Clippers at the Mavs. Mavs lead that series. And the Mavs are heavy favorites, -8 in that game. And Kawhi has already been ruled out.
Do you care about Cavs Magic? I know you're supposed to care. Do you actually care about that series or that game? Because I'm having trouble.
We've been having trouble.
caring.
Everybody's been having trouble. I think people in Cleveland and Orlando are having trouble.
So, I mean, yeah. Are you on that? Are you on? I'm doing post game for that for HQ. Are you on there with me tonight
No,
for both those games?
I've got tomorrow.
You got tomorrow. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I think I'm on tomorrow too. Look, yeah. Which one do you want to hit for? I don't even want to talk. You just
let's just talk about Clippers and Mavs. Let's talk about Clippers and Mavs.
Oh.
So the Mavericks. This is do or die time, right? I know that the Clippers have more pressure on them because they don't want to get eliminated, but I'm saying like you've got the game, you've got the series ahead. You're favored. Kawhi is out. Luka is coming off of his best shooting performance in this series. Like,
yes,
this is the time for the Mavs to acquit themselves.
And not to bring up bad memories, but the Sixers know this from, was it last year against the Celtics or 2 years? I mean, this happens, right? Momentum is a fickle thing, and if you lose a game, game 6 at home, you got to win. And it feels like everything's lined up to do that. It feels like Luka. I mean, Luka's amazing, but Luka has not been amazing necessarily in this series. Hasn't been efficient at times. He was awesome in Game 5, and he called himself out too. He said he wasn't helping Kyrie enough. Kyrie just looks. Look, I'm a Kyrie skeptic as it relates to what I bring him into a team to build a championship team around. But skepticism is not the same thing as absolutism, and I just think he likes it there. And he seems like he's the best version of himself in a long time as a player and a teammate in Dallas. And so my sort of hesitancy about him is gone. Who knows what the hell James Harden's going to do in this game on the other side? Like, he could very easily go 3 of 151 and just shoot this team. So I like Dallas, and it's going to be up to. I mean, I'll ask you, who is the guy for the Clippers on the road that is, Joel Embiid last night for most of the game, or Jalen Brunson for that team, or whoever you want to. Who's taking over the game for the Clippers offensively and putting them on their back? Paul George?
It has to be PG, and if it's not PG, it's got to be Harden, which is like really asking something, because we have seen games in this series and end Harden's career, and he did it last year in the Celtics series early,
yeah,
but
right.
late is when he disappears.
Yeah,
so that's why it's got to be PG, right? I mean, like, and also in defense of Paul George, who I'm a big fan of, this has been his best season in a long time. I mean, he's been healthy, he's been engaged. There's not, look, this past game 5 wasn't his best game, but he's done so much all season long, and he really did acquit himself nicely when Kawhi went down. So I think it's got to be PG. You don't generally think about Paul George as the guy who's going to be like, go supernova offensively, but he can. It could happen. Man, if the Clippers don't win this, what a rough offseason.
It is so I should have pulled this and I didn't, but somebody put out, I think Bobby Marks over at ESPN put out a list of the highest salary teams this year, right? Just by salary per team. It's just eliminated. So eliminated, Boston, eliminated. And not all, but many of those correspond to what we've been talking about with the Suns and what we've been talking about with the Bucks. And to your point, good, because the Clippers had to give Kawhi that extension, but the guy can't get on the floor when it matters. And Paul George can obviously choose to get the hell out of there. And they are opening a new arena, and they don't look like they're getting any better. The best case scenario feels like status quo. And if the status quo is the best case scenario is not even making a game 7 of the first round of the playoffs, you're going to have some consternation and some anxiety in that organization as well.
The worst case scenario this offseason is PG, who wants a max. They didn't give the max to Kawhi. He wants the max. They don't give it to him. He leaves. And then they look at James Harden and they're like, hey, man, you want to stick around? Here's some money because we're opening this new building. And you're going into the new building.
I mean, you got to pay him, but
Kawhi and James Harden. That's disastrous. Godspeed to the Clippers. All right. This one, we have to talk about this before we wrap up the show. I'm so excited, and I'm very interested to see where you fall on this. The Wolves and the Nuggets on a collision course in the second round starts on Saturday. Nuggets are minus 4.5 point favorites in the first game. They're also minus 205 in the series. Wolves are plus 170. Before I tell you what CBS thinks about this, what do you think about this series?
So those CBS models, I've been getting those for years, and they're great, but they're I like them because they're counterintuitive and they're hilarious, and I'd love to know how that guy does them. What do I think? I think I'm not sure how to properly measure Anthony Edwards, and I'm not sure how to properly gauge what I think I saw in the first round, given the fact it was against the Suns, who I think maybe are just a total disaster, especially after watching the entirety of Ishbia's their owner's press conference and how delusional that guy appears to be. But assuming that what I saw is real, that Anthony Edwards is not just a star, but is somehow already in his career one of the best playoff players, whatever, clutch, cold-blooded, able to handle the press, all that stuff. I think the Timberwolves can win the series. I don't think they will. I'll go Denver, but I think that there is a world. I was thinking about this the other night. I think there's a world where we look back 2 or 3 years from now when Ant has an MVP or maybe has already won a title or made some finals, and we're like, oh, yeah, they were always going to beat Denver in that series. Of course, that was the changing of the guard.
Maybe. I think it's just going to be, we just came off of Sixers and Knicks, so I don't want to go too hyperbolic here, but I think it's going to be a really amazing postseason playoff series. During the regular season, they split the 4 games 2-2. Wolves actually outscored them by 5.5 points per game over that. I think it comes down to depth, because the Nuggets' first 5 is the best starting 5. We talk about the Celtics and their first 6, but they're the defending champs for a reason. So I'm going to say that the Nuggets starting 5 is the best starting 5 in the NBA. After that gets real thin, real fast. Like, where are you going with like Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Reggie Jackson's been playing some minutes. They had to throw DeAndre Jordan's corpse out there a couple times. Justin Holiday. I mean, like, after their starting 5, they got nobody. And then on the other side for the Wolves, Naz Reid, 6th man of the year. You got Slow-Mo. You got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's been awesome in that first round against the Pelicans. They do have some different looks that they can throw at you. Nobody's going to stop Joker. Nobody's going to stop Jamal Murray. Just depth. I just think that they're set up to look. I don't know if they're going to win the series, but I do think that they're set up to like give the Nuggets a run here.
I think they'll push them. I mean, here's the good news for the Nuggets: that depth thing is real. It is less significant in the playoffs, obviously, than the regular season, and it's less significant in the second round than later, because if you want to load the minutes up, if you want to go Tom Thibodeau and play every guy 46 minutes, you can do it, right? And especially, and right, I think Michael Malone's amazing. So you can also play to your depth early in the series. And if you realize, if you're Malone, you realize, oh, this is a different kettle of fish. This T-Wolves team is pushing us the way we didn't expect. You can lean on your guys and lean on minutes on your guys and worry about the next round when you get to the next round. So the fact that it's earlier, I think is an advantage to ever. But you are right that the T-Wolves are. I was a skeptic. I was wrong. Dinner on me.
They're fun.
We all know it.
Welcome.
They're fun, and once Ant becomes that guy, and honestly, John, the thing that really convinced me, where I was like, "Oh, can I swear on this thing?" I'm going to. Oh shit, I really screwed this up. Is when I saw a press conference at some point, maybe after they eliminated Phoenix, where Anthony Edwards was talking to Cat and was telling a story with Cat sitting next to him about how basically he told Cat how he had to be, and you got to. I think it was be chill, but wasn't disrespectful. But it was, I'm the alpha, and you, who are much older than I am, are not. And I've been around Karl Anthony Towns randomly a lot in my life and career. I have spent ample time with him for sit-down interviews and stories. And how do I put this? Cat has a high regard for himself. He is very impressed with himself, which is fine. That's fine. The fact that Anthony Edwards, at his age, could be that alpha without it being off-putting, it just hit me like, oh my 22. God, he's that guy. He's that 22. Guy. So you plug that in with the depth and the coaching, and there's a coach issue with Finch being hurt, but yeah, man, I think they can surprise Denver. I'm not predicting it because I'm not that courageous, but get ready for it.
I'm not either. I just think it's going to be a great series. I'm really looking forward to it. You know who is predicting it? The CBS Sports predictive model has the Wolves 58-42, Bill.
No. Oh,
now,
okay.
I think that's out of line, but I do think when you look at the value in terms of the betting line, and I'm not a bettor, I know that you are, but when you look at the value of the betting line, I'm just saying that there's value there. There's a world where the Wolves can really give them a run. I just think it's going to be a fun series. I'm looking forward to it.
What about like $50 on this? I guess on a Pacers Timberwolves parlay. I mean, I'm hitting. You know what I'm saying?
I don't want any further. I thought you were going to say you'll take the Nuggets and I'll take the Wolves, and I'm like, all right, sure.
No, I'm done betting with you.
All right, and now we're done for the show too. This is a fun show. A lot of good basketball that's coming up this weekend. We'll get back at it on Monday with Ashley. We'll discuss all of that. But for now, for our NBA insider Bill Ryder, I am John Gonzalez. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy the weekend.